Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Um, I am very excited to share with you this mini lecture that I would be happy to expand upon, especially during our optional individual meetings. I'm also open to discussing any other questions or thoughts you might have. Okay, so what I would like to convey in this short video is the following. Uh, I would like first to discuss a key question, which is why social science inquiry, sorry about that, why social science inquiry and not natural or physical or engineering science inquiry? Because this is really important. Why? Because I have taught social research methods so many times. And one of the most important steps in any research, not only in social research, is designing a research question, is developing a research question. And some of my community members that I worked with before, when they develop a research question, the first question I would ask is, what's social about it? Obviously, physical science related questions, natural science, biological, whatever other disciplines are, they're absolutely important. That goes without saying. And they are important because they benefit humanity, but also they are important because they are relevant to the disciplinary requirements of, let's say, biology or physics or chemistry. But when it comes to social science inquiry, any social science research cannot be beneficial unless obviously it delves, it investigates, it examines the social, cultural, and human dimensions of the problem at hand. And so, one of the key elements in this class is that methodologically, it's very important to think socially. I'm talking about this class. I'm not saying thinking socially is the most important all the time. No, but it's the skill that we will be working on and developing is how we think socially when we design our methodology, how our research question touches on the social dimensions of the problem at hand. So, for instance, like my research was on GMOs. I have, I'm talking like this is me. Like that's, and this could be a way to introduce my interests. Is I did research on GMOs for 5 years. Before I started, I had no idea about GMOs. Like I have very low background in biology, in plant science, and obviously in genetic editing. But my research for the last 5 years, thanks to the community I worked with, focused on the social and cultural dimensions of genetic engineering. How is it relevant to smallholding farmers? Who benefits from it? Who doesn't benefit from it? Now, those who engage in developing genetic engineered plants, how much are they familiar with the social and political and economic and cultural realities of the farmers who will be using those seeds, and so on and so forth. And so, but then of course you will find another person working on genetic editing, but they might be a toxicologist or an allergenicist or a plant breeder or an economist or a policy analyst. And some of them might touch on the social dimensions, some not, might be just lab work where there's no inclusion of the human dimensions. And of you, obviously, all these approaches, if to figure out how to work harmoniously, would be very important to develop a technology that is technologically feasible, socially appropriate, and economically valuable. And so that's why it's very important in this class to pay attention, to always ask yourself, each one here, I'm working on this project. What's social about it? What's culture? And when I say social, of course, what do we mean by social? It refers obviously to society, which is a set of group members who are tied together through culture. Now, culture, of course, can be pinned down to values, norms, customs, language, traditions, symbols, and so on and so forth. So always when we engage in research projects, the first question is, what is social about it? And then the next question is, why should I care about social inquiry? We should not forget that, and this is something I'm very excited about within SFIS, is the strong belief in the importance of transdisciplinary research, because we know for a fact that for so many years, and even now, unfortunately, there are still people who are very esoteric, very tied to their academic silos, who cannot branch out, and which I like to call sometimes it can cause some kind of academic tribalism. And I believe at SFIS, one of the key premises of our school is to bridge different disciplinary research and thinking to solve global problems. One of the key fundamental elements that have been missing in international development projects, and I have seen it, I've been part of it, but also a lot has been part of it, has been written about it, is understanding how society works. Because when we design a development project, we make assumptions. When we design a technology, we assume people need that technology or will be interested to use it. We assume that the price we put for that technology, people will afford it. We assume that that technology will be used for this reason or another. And so that's why there have been a lot of research that tries to understand, like, very simple question, why are people poor? And for example, the Nobel Prize laureates 2019, as you see here, basically using methods from medical research, randomized controlled methods, they figured out, and using some experimentation with different communities, which means, I mean here by experiment is the implementation of different poverty alleviation programs. They found out that poverty challenges differ and vary from one cultural context to another, even within the same national context. And why they reached these results is because they paid attention to the social determining factors rather than just focusing on just one element, which could be bureaucracy or technology. No, they touched on the values, the culture, the politics, and how they can shape someone's socioeconomic background. And that's an example that basically shows the importance or the need for social inquiry. Another example here is there is a huge body of literature that critiques the idea of the expert knowledge, or the so-called the expert knowledge versus local knowledge, or the top-down versus the bottom-up, and so on and so forth, or the elite knowledge versus the layman's knowledge. And we know, unfortunately, academia, and we are part of it, and proudly part of it, was responsible for this gap that sometimes we have between the townies and the gownies. The townies, the layman, the common people, and the gownies people in academia. And that's why I like the mission at ASU, which talks about the idea of ensuring the inclusion of those who are not included. Always looking for what's the missing voice here. And the missing voice, for example, in international development projects was the very people who might be familiar with their own culture, that we can learn about their own culture, their own challenges, and learning about those challenges could inform and shape our understanding of the development challenges. And that's why many development projects basically failed and caused more harm than good, like structural adjustments, IMF, World Bank. In fact, I personally asked a question to the director of the World Bank at some point about the inclusion of social sciences, and now definitely there is a very, very strong awareness of that. But that has not always been the case. That's what I'd like to emphasize, and that's why I have these examples of literature here that you can find here, like the Tyranny of Experts. I think William Easterly wrote even the book of The White Man's Burden, or International Development as Freedom, and so on and so forth. And many, by the way, of these authors, interestingly enough, worked and flourished within the institutions that they critique themselves. And so these are some of the examples that show the indispensable importance of social research. Because how am I going to know that there is a problem if I don't do research about it? And so basically, I probably stop here for this introductory remarks, but I just want to conclude here by emphasizing two key points. One, while reading through Criswell's textbooks and Newman's, try to tie the points to your interests in local or international development, and always ask this question: what's social about my interest? If you don't see any, please let's meet and share and discuss and brainstorm, because it's very important to remember that this class is about social inquiry. That doesn't mean you cannot combine it with other types of inquiry from other disciplines. No, you're absolutely encouraged, and I would be so happy and honored to learn about how you figure that out and how you develop that. But it's very important for this class to practice methodologically. This is very important because here we're talking about methodology, which means doing research, designing the methods, deciding on the research question, how I'm going to go about it, how my research methods correspond to my research question, and how all these steps operationalize in my terms, and how all these methodological steps are addressing a social question, a question related to social dimensions or human dimensions. So thank you so much and have a great day.